1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Put James. Sure, that's it.
Hello, can you hear me? Ashe. Okay, sanibonani, ninjani. Okay, the most beautiful thing about the Zulu greeting, it literally means I see you, right? Sanibonani, I see you, I acknowledge you. I see you with the people that you walk with that are not here. I see you in your presence, in your efforts to be here. Kuningi. So welcome, Sanamkel. And we welcome you online also. My name is Ongezwa Mbele, Belegazi. And then I'll be facilitating on site here. I'll be with you guys. And then online, we've got Unkonzo Mkhize facilitating for us. Let's just continue with the work that we do. But first, we just need to start waking up our bodies. We don't leave our bodies behind because we know that the oppression sits on our bodies. And so now and then we must key in. What I learned from COVID is that breathing is the most revolutionary, mundane exercise we can actually do for our bodies. And we know that, and we witness, and we know that at one point, there was a man in the US who said, I can't breathe, right? So in the work that we do not leave our bodies behind. That's the most revolutionary act. So can I invite you to just stand with me? Just be present, hands on your side, and just a deep breath in and out. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Just become aware as your lungs open, as your intercostal muscles contract and relax in through your mouth and out, in through your nose, right? And out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And we continue breathing as we ground ourselves. Just feel your feet connect with the ground. Squeeze your toes and release your toes. Squeeze them tight and release. I want us to act like we ballerina dancers. So we're gonna point our feet and just relax. Point and relax. Point and relax. If you need the chair to just get your balance or a table, right? Just do that. And we go to the other foot, point and relax. And point and relax. And we're gonna try and just swirl our ankles to our right hand. Swirl those ankles, waking up our bodies. And stop. And the other side, just same foot. And exploring the possibilities of our ankles that they can actually go to and swirl in the other side, right? That we're not used to. And relax. Okay, the other foot. And just swirl, circle movements. And relax. And then the other side. And just relax. Okay, I'm gonna invite you, just pull all your muscles, your thigh muscles up. So just tighten your thigh muscles and relax. And tight, 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 and relax. Again, last one, all the way to your bum, tight, 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 right? And relax. All the way and relax. Tsipa, tsipa, you see. Okay, let's do thigh, bum, tsipa, tsipa. Oh, and relax. Okay, tighten our fists all the way. Mandla movements down. If you want to just bring them up, because now I'm feeling like that, you know. Our mandla movement, our powerhouse, and just relax. Remember, you're not really leaving the breath. I'm reminding myself also. Okay, last one, tight fist all the way. And we bring our hands up, our mandla movement, power fists up, and relax. And then we're gonna bring our shoulders up, right? We carry a lot on our shoulders. We carry a lot, and we're just gonna wake them up all the way up to our ears and relax. And up. And just relax, let go. And relax. Okay, we're gonna go to just the face. Got quite a lot of muscles on our face, which we don't exercise. And I'm just gonna ask you to tighten your face, prune face, look funny, allow yourself to be silly. It's a revolutionary act, decolonial work, we need to have fun. And relax. Again, prune face. And relax. Prune face. And relax. Now, I want you to imagine you've got peanut butter inside your mouth, right? And allow yourself to be silly. You are allowed to play as adults. It's the most revolutionary act. Take back your time. And 5 to 7 on laptops, no. Asizi. Okay, pretend that you've got, imagine that you've got peanut butter in your mouth and you're trying to get it out with your tongue. It's right at the back. And now it's no longer peanut butter, it's for all the meat eaters, it's nyama yegusha stuck in between your and we're back, right? And we're gonna just be a bit silly. I'm gonna ask you to pull your tongue out. As adults, my people are not here. I had leadership yesterday. I even did like a networking session. We did painting because I thought, you know, the children would come through because they go there easily, right? They go there easily. And we have to ask ourselves what happened to ourselves that we ran away from playing. So I want you to pull your tongue out. And in again. And in. Thank you so much for being present. One last one, right? We're gonna shake all that we did and we're gonna do a countdown. So we're all gonna do a countdown. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Are you ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah. Now the shoes must be off. So a lot happened yesterday. I must check my times. A lot happened yesterday. A lot of voices were here. A lot of bodies were here, online and on site. And I think the beauty of the work that we do, for me, is the fact that through the relations, there's always connections, right? There was a mention of Usisixolisa Kuzula. That's my reflection, who's in Cape Town, and I've worked with her. And Usis Zandi knows Uxolisa Kuzula. And that's the work sits in collaboration and relations. And Sbu yesterday, who's the saxophone player and is the pianist, know Usis Zandi from Soweto. And we didn't plan this, right? And some people call it organic, but we call it spiritual, right? When we invited Nelson yesterday to come through and be part of the poetry, the one Miriam Makeba poem talks about borders. We didn't plan that he was gonna reflect about Mexico borders in that poem that you recited, right? And that's, for me, sits the work. If I don't connect to you guys, I see yeken, right? So I just want us to take time and do the things that children do, right? The assignment you've got, it's not an assignment, it's a reflection moment. You've got pen, cookies and paper. Just draw, don't stop yourself. think about what really stood out for you yesterday. Just sketch something on paper, release, and be in the moment. Thank you.
Oh. You cannot convert this video. The one that BLC became the trailer, right? Then there's two interviews, right? There's two interviews here. This one and this one. Doesn't want to download. Let's see if I can download this one. Then it means you, I'll have to have YouTube there, YouTube there. Okay. Yeah, pop it up. Let's see if I can download this one. Yeah.
if you can also just be ready to facilitate this process with us. It's weird. Gonzo is around with us online. So I'm gonna go around and just ask people to showcase the artwork, right? Exhibition moment, and just talk through what they wrote or painted or drew, not wrote.
Okay.
Okay, I think what resonated for me yesterday was the collective that came together. And I think what stood out was the spirit that prevailed in the room in terms of this collective, right? Which included our children, our elders, and the youth. And I thought it was such a powerful moment and such a powerful representation of Black love and Black power. And I think through Ayabolela and Mbali and Makota's presentation, the idea of Black love, but the embodiment of Black love, the idea, the ways of being in relation to Black love and Black power just was made so visible through their presentations. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. I'll go to this table. Z.
Oh, you said you'd hold it up.
Hold it up.
Yes. So Izolo, Molweni Sanmonan. Yesterday towards the end, there were 3 ladies that spoke, and afterwards there was a conversation regarding the contributions that Sizand, and that's sort of a small Anyana love letter to her. It's an hourglass, and at the bottom we have the soil, we have a tree, we have some seeds, we have some hearts, and we have her. So that could be to everyone, but it's literally what the product of all of her work has brought to fruition. Yes.
Nkonzo, do you have any reflections for us? Are you guys on? Will you be able to showcase Nkonzo?
Yeah.
Sylvan? Okay.
Hi, Ngezwa. I've just sent out a, someone has actually raised their hand. Genolom Mang Kwaji would like to share something in terms of their reflection. And I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. So can we allow them in? Sorry. Melissa?
She's able to speak.
Okay. Can you please speak?
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I can speak now, right?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Okay. I drew a big heart surrounded by many hearts. What resonated to me yesterday and the heart is to stand in my own convictions and my own resolve. And yesterday also connected me to my work, my research on my lived experiences as a child whose mother was politically imprisoned for more than 8 years of my childhood. And yesterday connected me to the rich history of my story and where I come from. And something remarkable as well was the connection took me back to my childhood days when my mom, my dad, and I would sing political songs And something remarkable about my parents' journey is that my dad was also a friend to Steve Biko. And I just remembered how Black is Beautiful was something highly instilled in me. As a result, my dad never bought me a white doll. I don't even know where he got to buy me black dolls. But from an early age, he instilled in me that Black is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenele Mang. And we also have Figile here. I don't know if you would, if you can also go to her. Onges.
It's okay. Yeah, we are running over time, but I'll allow these moments. I'll still time elsewhere.
Thank you. Figile, Melissa, if we can allow her also to speak.
Sanbonani, good morning, everybody. Sibingelela ngenjabulo online. My reflection, Ongi, actually started in the middle of the morning about yesterday, and I wrote this piece. It felt so much like a conversation to Umama Nomzama Matikizela Mandela, and this is how I went, to say somehow, being a Sowetan, I cannot pen this thing down. And it felt like a demobilization of some kind, a powering too, a knowing too that goddesses have been right all along. There's a bit of aching, relieved at the same time, that most people, especially our children, know too about Inzalo Ilanga. And I said, speak, Winnie Matikizela Mandela, speak, Mama. Soweto has been uprising since. This is how I felt, and I still feel today. Our children have been talking to Uncle Steve Biko. Our grandchildren, your grandchildren, abazukulwana bakho, Mama, they know about 1976. Hatebe House, Soweto, busy. Black House Collective at Dobsonville, you, imile. Andisavuye, you, obuzavuya nawe, Thixo Mazulu, kuthi ngco. Kufanele ke sithethile nangezinyanya zakuthi Nomzamo ingathi usemninzi umsebenzi kulameko yotamkhulu nomakhulu, kodwa ke sivuyile nyani abantwana bethu bayathetha notata uvusa amazulu uCredo kaMuthwa phaya eCredo Mutwa village ngaseJabulani. Mama akumandi, ingaske ndixhenze ndikikise xa ndicinga lameko in the 1980s, latuwa a state of emergency. Yayituwa nyani lanto. Enkosi kakhulu. Nomzamo.
Thank you, Figile. Thank you, Sis Figile.
Okay, so we're gonna go to our next session. As I said, we're running a bit late, but we'll still time from different moments. Yeah, and so basically we're gonna watch a documentary titled Surviving Female Political Detains at John Foster Square. This documentary is done by Umama Mahauta Molefe, and Umzandile will facilitate the session for us. Mazandile Makanya, who's my colleague. And but before that, I just need to introduce Ume. And my phone is doing things, but we have time, guys. I'm not gonna go by colonial times. I know we're there, but see, disrupt even the time. Okay. See, Lindy prepared before I spoke to Nkons online. There we are. Ume Makauta Molefe was born in Alexandra and grew up in Soweto. She started political activism as a member of the Black Consciousness movement at Morris Isaacson High School in the 1970s. Ume was involved in the pro-Frelimo rally at Turfloop University, now called University of Limpopo, which she was later expelled in 1975. She has been in trouble with the security police since high school and was detained several times and has spent time in solitary confinement at John Foster Square. And number 4, Constitutional Hill. She was refused an international passport while at high school after receiving a scholarship to study outside the country. Later, even her local traveling documents were withdrawn. Several years later, her passport was approved and she was invited by the Azania Committee in Germany to do a round tour on issues of women. She represented South Africa in the African Association for Adult Literacy and the International Council for Adult Literacy and Education. As a member and a treasurer of an African women regional body, FemNet, May was involved in Beijing Women's Conference. She's a member of the management committee of the 1970s group, a body of struggle veterans. She's also a trustee of the National Liberation and Heritage Institute of South Africa and the Kasi Village Society Education. She is an executive producer of Surviving John Foster Square, a documentary of stories of women former detainees who were tortured at this notorious prison by the apartheid regime. The documentary will be released to mark this year's Women's Day. She's presently working on her home garden project. It's a writing project with youth, though her foundation, Mawati Molefa Legacy Foundation. Siyabonga. And so we're gonna watch not the documentary, the trailer, because of copyright issues. Uzochaza kabanzi Uma Nomzwandile about that. Over to you, Selvin. Thank you.
Stepping back into the past, physically and mentally, is more than memories of courage and history. For a group of female former political detainees, the journey back to John Foster Square is both a source of trauma and triumph.
By the time I got to John Foster Square, I was bloodied, I was swollen, I was in pain.
And are they going to kill me, just like Timo? I was just paralyzed with the fear.
Then I had a miscarriage. Only when I started bleeding, I realized.
would rather die with the truth than to confess, because confessing or telling the truth was not going to help you.
Don't take her to Kruger's, take her straight to John Foster. Because you know how they used to say this 100.
A group of women who participated in the 1976 Soweto student uprisings have spoken on how they survived the traumatic detention at the John Vorster Square police station. A documentary titled Surviving John Vorster Square lays bare the brutal experiences of the 9 struggle heroines many of us have not even heard much about. To hear more about this, we're joined by anti-apartheid activist Daphne Khoza and Magauta Molefe, who's also the director and producer of the documentary. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much, Bome, for joining us on the Weekend Report. We hear so much about the men of June 16, 1976, and the images of the portrayal focusing on the men. And Daphne, I'd like to start with you. Let's talk a little bit about some of your experiences and what you recall as you have been reminded of what actually transpired with this 120-minute documentary.
Good morning, viewers. I think what I recall about June 16, I was actually a participant, not as a student, because I was particularly in the founding of Black consciousness in 1970 when I was a student at the University of Zululand. So when June 16 erupted, I was working for the South African Council of Churches. Therefore, that was my start of the participation, when basically we were providing students who were accosted by the police in the township when I lived at the Methodist Youth Center, you know, handing them water when they were, thrown, when what is it? This thing which burns your eyes was thrown at them.
And Magauta, what are your memories as you look back and recall what happened, especially as you reminded with the production of the documentary?
Well, the documentary is based on women who were detained not only for 76 activities, but for their political activities in the Black consciousness movement from the 70s. So it is a mixture. It's not only 76. We do have people from 76. And why we did it is because we want to highlight that women also struggle. They also sacrifice their lives. And we want women to tell their stories so that the world can know that they also sacrifice for this country.
And what are some of the sacrifices that you speak of? I mean, we speak so much about the men of the struggle, and very little is known about the reality on the ground behind bars for women.
Women were also in the leadership. We should remember that the formation of SASO, 50% of the executive were women. We have women who have also contributed in many ways, besides joining organizations, supporting the men, supporting their kids, and nothing is said about this. So this is the beginning of telling that story of women, because very little is said about women. So we thought we should pick up a few of them and show that they were also involved. The sacrifices, like in prison, during apartheid, people get tortured. Some were killed, but electrocution was for everybody, being beaten up and all that, and they came out with emotional and physical scars that they've carried for all these years.
Daphne, the emotional and physical scars that have been carried for all these years are feelings that one cannot just erase, as they crop up, as especially you're reminded from time to time about your experiences. Talk to us more about your emotional journey and how it's perhaps enabled you today?
I think I'm very proud and grateful to Mahauta for having done this documentary. One of the emotional pains I experienced then was about John Foster. Stories about John Foster's, I don't think that they've been adequately told, especially in respect of women. I always think of John Foster Square as a torture chamber, and a lot has been said about men being tortured in John Foster Square, but I don't think that a lot has been said about the torture of women in John Foster Square. For instance, I was detained, then I was working for the SACC, and they fetched me, the security policeman, in a limousine with the old South African flag from there, and I was detained for very hectic and brutal interrogation at John Foster for about 3 hours. And the main thing was that they were trying to extricate from me in very vicious interrogatory manners, which were, which affected me psychologically, because they were tracing my movements with Tenjiwe Mtinzo. That was the main setting of the interrogation. But what I found very, traumatizing was at the point, I was sitting they put me on a chair, and I was surrounded by about 6 very hefty Afrikaner men, very muscular. They were wearing khaki shorts and khaki shirts, and they actually partially opened their chests so that I could see their hairy chests as part of the intimidation. But what I found traumatic was that before one of them, they were using abusive language and pushing me around, and one of them actually stabbed his cigarette on my breast, and he said, Kafirmate, if you're not talking, I'm going to burn your kafir nipple. And then one of them held me by my neck, the scruff of my neck, and they pushed me towards the window, and he pushed my head down. It was on I think on the 9th floor of John Foster, the popular interrogation place. And as the way he opened the window and made me look down, hold me by, both his heavy hands on my neck. And he said to me, look down there. You Black consciousness people, you say we kill people on this floor, and like you're busy saying we threw Timol. I remember quite distinctly they were saying to me as my head was being held down on this we pushed Timol, and they said to me, if you don't tell us about your movements with Tenjiwe Mtinzo, I am not going to push you down, but you will jump down like Timol and land with your head on the streets. So that was very traumatic for me. And, they continued interviewing. But I think the trauma of that day is that whereas they brought me in their limousine, when they let me go from John Foster, when I got outside of John Foster, the way I was mentally, dear Makar, I stood on the entrance of John Foster, and I couldn't remember which way whether to turn left or to turn right in order to walk back to the SACC. That was the greatest trauma I experienced. And John Foster was a torture chamber. And I think it's befitting for women, especially during this month of August, that the children of today, especially, not even people who participated in Mahauta and the rest, but the children of today, they need to know what women went through at that torture chamber, which is John Foster, and their role in the liberation of this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some really heart-wrenching descriptions there as you speak about your horrors. Magauta, you also had long spells in prison. You were also a target of the apartheid security, especially with your political activism, being a pupil of the Morris Isaacson High School. Talk to us about how you narrate your experiences in this 120-minute documentary.
Well, when I was detained, I was already working at the BPC. I had been kicked out of university because of my participation in the pro-freedom rally. So they detained me after looking for me for a very, very long time. And then I was pregnant. During interrogation, I got miscarriage. And because we were detained in solitary confinement, we didn't know what each one of us experienced. Only now when I'm doing the documentary, I find out that there are also other women who also had miscarriages, because you get kicked, they electrocute you, they make you stand for a long time, they beat you up. So I experienced that. And now when you are talking to women, you find that they've never spoken about their experiences. And it becomes so traumatic because we are opening old wounds.
And very lastly, before we let you go, Magauta, tell us about this documentary, when it can be viewed and how to access it, and perhaps some of the cast members that are within it.
We have people like Bongile Mkabela, we have Perly Tuli, we have Lorraine, Lele Abraham, Joyce Dipale, Malishane Mukwena, Dr. Unjini Punen, and Daphne Koda. We have a lot, and then we've also interrogated their kids about their experience. Most of them were not born, but we asked them to make a reflection as family members of the role of their mothers in the whole thing, and then some community members. What is happening now is that it's only by private viewing. It's people that have been invited on the 16th and then also on the 26th. But as soon as we've shown it to different people, then we'll decide what we are going to do with it. But we're getting very good response. People are asking for it. So that is what is happening. It's by invitation for now.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time, anti-apartheid activist Daphne Khoza and Magauta Molefe, who is also the director and producer of the documentary titled Surviving John Foster Telling. And speaking of the horrors that women experienced during this time, that time, of course, we often hear so much about the stories of men and very little about the horrors that women experience during an oppressive time in South Africa's history pages. A moment to reflect in this 120-minute documentary. Hopefully we'll get to hear more about how the general public gets to view it, as of course we learn from the histories and perhaps improve when it comes to a new South Africa.
Welcome back. We're talking about Surviving John Foster Square. It's a 120-minute documentary film about the life stories and ordeals of a group of female former political detainees who were held at the notorious John Foster Square headquarters of the apartheid security police in the 1970s and 80s. The documentary tells the untold stories of these women who resisted a racist and tyrannical regime and paid the price for their political activism. Magauta Molefe is herself a former inmate and project leader and producer of Surviving John Foster Square. She joins us now. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Magauta. So I'm just wondering, you say when you were embarking on this project, it was a frightening prospect. Tell us why.
These are untold stories. These are stories that people never spoke about. And I thought, the stories of women are never spoken about. It's as if they were never in the struggle. We only hear of very few people, I think less than 5. So I thought, why don't we get the stories out there so people should know that the women were also in the forefront, they also sacrificed, they were also tortured, they also gave their lives for the struggle for this country to be liberated.
And you can preface it by telling us your own story as well, but I'd imagine what made it difficult was, as you mentioned, the torture. You yourself were tortured in detention. How did that come about, and was it easy to talk about it, but to also get your fellow subjects to talk about it, given that these are not things that you open up about?
It wasn't easy, not at all. What I'm discovering is that because we never spoke about these things, we push them at the back of our mind. Every time we talk, there's new things that we talk about. And this happened also with the people that I was interviewing. There are things I never spoke about that happened to me. For instance, that I got a miscarriage. I never told anyone. But last year when we started this project, out of the blue, it came and I spoke about it. And when I was interviewing people, were going through that process, when people were remembering things and they were crying like it happened yesterday, to an extent that we had to engage a team of counselors to be there when we do the shooting. So it was a very difficult process. There were times when the person we are interviewing is crying, we are crying, the whole house, we are crying, and we have to stop. It was a horrible experience to do it, but it was enjoyable because some of them were able to get a relief about when they spoke about what happened to them. And I think it's the beginning of a process of healing. There are people who agreed to be on the set and they withdrew. And there were others who refused, but as we continued, they came back to say, no, I want to be part of it.
I mean, we've been hearing as a country of late about the exact details of what happened to people like Ahmed Timo. People like Elmo Malele have also spoken about their experiences. And I've seen pictures of the electrocution equipment, even for women, that would be attached to their breasts. I know this is very graphic, but I want us to understand just how bad it was out there in isolation. Some of them have spoken about rapes. What were the crimes that led these women, including yourselves, into these cells? And did you endure some of these? Are you able to share some of them?
Well, people enjoyed that, and because it was in isolation, everyone thinks I'm the only one who suffered. But as we were talking as a group, we discovered that most of us went through the same thing. People were electrocuted, we were kicked, we were beaten up, and most of us were made to stand until you ran mad. Different experiences, same styles of torture, very traumatic, people passing out. There are people who passed out, and when they woke up, they didn't know what happened to them. Like I passed out when they took me back to the cell, and I slept for about 3 days. And when I woke up, all these big men were standing around me. So they could have done anything because I was in a state. So we never shared these things. And remember those days, we were such small girls. Some of us were 21, we were 20, and these boys were so big, their hands their arms were so big. And you can imagine such big men surrounding small girls like us.
So I want to put I want to put what you're talking about in the present day and now as Magauta. We are talking about even right now in the past couple of weeks, as recent as the past couple of weeks, as I said, words like terrorism, detention without trial have populated our lexicon right now. And I want you to talk about this project against that backdrop of the brutality of a system then, but also against the backdrop of systematic abuse of women now.
Well, then we knew who the enemy was. Every black person or everyone who was in the struggle knew who the enemy was. The difference today is that it is so clouded, you don't know who you are fighting. And it is worse in that it also happens in the house, at home, with people that you know, at work, and in the community. Well, it used to happen those days, but maybe because we didn't talk about it. The struggles of women are everywhere, at work, in the community, and the new laws that were, the new government that came into place does not give us that much protection, because people are still being raped, they are still being killed, and they are not sent to jail. The cases take time to be opened, so people don't even have the confidence in the system itself. So still happening.
So you have said the making of this documentary was itself not without its difficulties. One of the initial donors was amongst those who tragically died of COVID-19, was one of the first victims. How has it helped you look at the unforeseen vulnerabilities and pandemics that lie ahead for the future of women coming up? Because you are releasing this in commemoration of Women's Month, to look back at some of these issues.
What we want is to record history, because the first thing, the stories are part of healing for the women, but they are
what a pity that
a lesson to the generation. They are, because we don't talk about it recorded, will help everybody. It will help the generation. They will know that my sister, my mother, and all the women also gave their lives to this. And while that is happening, the women are healing for telling their story.
And it's what we've been talking about here on the Full View, about women recording their history and being recorded in history. Thank you so much for speaking to us about that. Makhauta Molefe is a filmmaker and former prisoner at the notorious John Foster Square police station, about the release of that 120-minute documentary surviving John Foster. Well, that's in celebration and commemoration of Women's Month.
Thank you. I feel the room needs to breathe. So just before we go to let's just take those deep breaths in, right? And out. Right? In and out. Okay, I'll just head over to you, and then Gonzo, you also there. We'll just if people have questions.
Good morning. Yeah. So much has been said now about the document. There are things that I could say. But maybe I should give the background why I did the documentary. Part of this, of the oppressed masses of this country suffered political, the social, and most people were also raided by the police. But we don't hear much about women. For instance, if we can go back to the past laws, the past struggles, they don't start in 1956. We know that in Bloemfontein, there were people like in 1912, people like Katilo and Mrs. A.S. Khabashane, who led the past raids against women. And who knows about that? We don't know anything about that. And also in 1913, people like Rachel Tota and Mrs. Musida Pudi in Bloemfontein. So we don't get stories about women. And also, I don't know if you know that there were women who were sentenced to death. Like the Sharpeville 6, one of the people was a woman, Teresa Ramashamula. And the Uppington 14, they were sentenced to death. One of the women, one of the people there was a woman. We don't get any write-up about it. So I looked at this and said, how do we bring the stories of women up? We have quite a lot of heroes, of sheroes that we don't talk about. At the PAC before the Black Consciousness Movement, Evelina de Bruin is the woman who was sentenced to death. We have people like Miriam Tladi, Stella Moabi, Zoe Mokhadi, Nomvo Boy, Elizabeth Sibeko. And we don't hear much about these women. And now at the formation of SASO, during the advent of Black consciousness, you should know that almost half of the executive was women when SASO was formed. We don't hear anything about these women. We hear a lot about Irene Ngwenkulu, Steve Biko, but we don't hear about these women. Daphne is one of the founder members of the organizations. She can tell you stories about how Zanempilo came to life because she was there. After completing her studies, she never worked. She was recruited by Steve, very close confidant of Steve. Do we hear about her? You see her today, you don't know. Now, in the Black consciousness movement, we've had these women like Debs Machoba, we've had Mampele, we had Daphne Koza, Tenju Mtinso, Nomsizi Krai, Mapiri Masikela. A little is said about, and now even when you go to our literature, where men are mentioning so-and-so said this on this day, they never say Debs Machoba said this or Daphne. In fact, they forget. Even when you hear a person saying something, you know you were there walking with him, this is what you did, and you are in the room, the person doesn't remember because you are a woman. So I said, you know what? Let me get women to write their stories. The purpose was to write the stories, but then I struggled with the angle, where do you start? And as you know, our people are not, I don't want to say they are lazy to write, I must say they are reluctant or maybe busy. And we're going around to say, let's put our stories together. And then eventually I came with the angle that let's talk about detention. And I started that early in the 90s. I was talking to filmmakers because I didn't have confidence in myself that I'm not a filmmaker. I've given people a lot of ideas to write plays and things, and I never thought I could do it because I'm saying it's not my field, you know, the confidence thing. So Matimela Manaka agreed to do the thing after he did a Steve Biko documentary. So when he had cleared his time, he came to me and said, let's now sit down and come with the idea. We sat down and made some ideas, and then he said he was going to look for funding. Unfortunately, then he became involved in an accident and he passed on. So for years I was going, when I see people carrying things, I say, let's sit down. They say, okay, Sisi, okay, Mama will come. They make an appointment, they don't turn up. So that's how, in the end, in 2018, then I met Musa. Musa also, it was a commemoration. I said, Musa, and I've been wanting to do this. He said, oh, Mama, let me come to your house, let's talk. And then we sat down with Musa, and then I gave him a brief, and we started working on it for several months. And he said to me, you know, you can be an executive producer. I'm looking at myself, I'm 69. I've never written, well, I've written plays a long time, but producing a film and being, I remember Tate Boke Mafuna saying, yo, you've made history at 69, a woman and a film producer, an executive producer. He was saying that every day. He says, you've made a milestone. And that's how we started working on the film, on the thing. Now we didn't have funding. both myself and Musa were not working, but fortunately, because I'm a pensioner, I get paid every month. So we wait for month end. And then I first budget for the production before I pay my other things. And that's how we have been working. And then I was busy trying to get funding. And then COVID came. But there was this gentleman that I'd had the family to claim some money from the insurance some time ago. So when he met me, he said, what are you doing? I said, no, and then I'm producing a film. He said, producing a film, I'm going to get money. And let me tell you, come and talk to me at the house. Because of what you did for us as a family, give us your budget. And then we drew a budget and gave it to him. Just when COVID came, his family was the first victim because somebody died, and then all the people who ran the funeral, about 7 people in that family were taken by COVID. So my sponsor was gone. So we struggled. Let me tell you, we struggled, but we continued working, and it became very difficult. But because I had been incarcerated also at number 4, they have a policy there. If you are a former detainee, you use the venue without paying, but you use whatever room they give you that people have not booked. So one day they'll give you this room, somebody pays for it, they give you another room which has no electricity, then you have to cancel the shooting. Yeah, but people were very patient. But like you saw there, that people would agree and then withdraw. And then some people during the shooting, the whole thing becomes so traumatic because then they remember things that happened that they never spoke about. So that's when I realized that we needed counseling. And fortunately, people like Tembi, Ramokgopa, Sibongile Tlobatla, and Pusetso Mablan, who are also former people who have been in the struggle, said, look, we'll form a team and give our services free of charge. So they did that, and they were always present when we were doing it. So the last day after we finished shooting, and then funding came from the National Video and Film Production. But because of lack of experience, I had not asked for that much money. But let me tell you, the participants and their families supported this project. When a person will say, give me your account, let me give Musa money for petrol. Bring your car, let us fill petrol when you're going to shoot. I got lots of support from people. And when it came out, because initially the idea was to release it on 2019 Women's Month, but because of COVID, we released it last year. So that's how it went. That's how it went. So the Film and Publication Board gave it an age restriction of 16, which I'm still fighting because they say it has a violent language. But I wanted this to be mainly for the kids. So I have a problem with it. So I'm still taking it up with them. So that's it about the film. Yes. Yes, okay, thank you. Okay.
Sanibona. Igama lami nguMzwandile Makhanya. My name is Mzwandile Makhanya, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Firstly, I'd just like to say to government, or Sisman cause power, but you should give people flowers whilst they can still smell them, right? Yeah, so I'd like everyone who's here to please stand up and just give them. All right, so we're just gonna have a quick discussion about the documentary, but mostly about the process of making that documentary, because there's what we call participatory video, which I think was, that's what was happening here, because we have the final output, which is the video itself, which is powerful. But there's also this parts of this process that happened that was therapeutic to others, that did a lot, so that informed. And then even now, today, as we hear, we're still part of that process, we're learning. So I'd like us to talk about that process. But before we go into that, Mema Hauda said that she would like Uma would definitely to have a word about the process and also other information that she would like to give us regarding what we're talking about here. So please,
Thank you, Mzondile. I think what I want to say is that about the process, when Mahauda called me to ask ukuthi ngibe a participant in this documentary, I actually refused. I refused. I said to Mahauda, you know, Mahauda, in every struggle, there are unsung and sung heroines, because I was talking about women. And I said, Mahauda, I don't regard myself as a heroine of the liberation struggle. And I said to Mahauda, Mahauda, I know how you have been tortured even before you were detained at John Foster Square. And I said, I know many women like you who were in John Foster Square with you. And I also know that there are women like you who were incarcerated at number 4. And number 4 is called, it's now where the Constitutional Court is. And I said, I know too that I've been harassed a great deal in my activism as SASO, in my activism as a member of the Black People's Convention, in my activism when I worked with Steve Biko and Sam Moodley at 86 Peter Street in Durban. But Mahauda's response was, Daphne, you know, torture and interrogation has no levels, you know. I think that's what she said. And she said to me, the fact that you were fetched by security policemen, taken to John Foster and harassed, not even, you were detained for 3 hours or so. That was detention, which had psychological effect on you. So that's what Mahauda said. And I said, I'll think about it. But eventually, through her persuasion, I said, yes, I will agree. Another thing which I remember about this process is what Mahauda said about the trauma of women who said, okay, Mahauda will come. And then when they were there, because during the shooting, you had to talk about your experiences. And there were other women who would find that the shooting would be delayed or stopped because the woman cannot go on now. That was I was traumatized by that. And another thing which I remember about this shooting is how Mahauda dedicates all of herself. And I was close, I am close to Mahauda, but during the shooting, I even became closer to her, where she was talking about the problems of, you know, struggling and falling because she had no financial resources. And for that, I really thank God. I really am to have given Mahauda this strength of pushing and pushing despite her lack of financial resources. And eventually, this documentary was produced. And I want to say to you, Mahauda, There is a reason why God saved you from the 10th floor of John Foster Square. There is a reason why God even saved you from the Constitutional Hill, because you needed to tell a story of women who suffered in the liberation movement. In this documentary, God made you even go further and bring some of our children. My son is also in the documentary, Usandile, so that they should remember what their mothers did. And that will be something they will carry from generation to generation. Thanks for having persuaded me, an unsung heroine in the struggle, to be part of this documentary.
Ngiyabonga. I guess the breathing helps. I'd like to preface this with, you've opened a door, Mema Gauta. And of course, that door, it's a door that might open to many more documentaries, that share the experience of women and the impact on the family, including the children that may still be carrying the trauma that is still not shared. We live with layers of trauma. Sometimes we don't understand why we detach from our mothers. And I strongly feel that you've opened the door. This is the first of many that should come. And as a people who are storytellers, I think writing, falls short. Let people tell their story. We have technology, to convey those stories. I have one question, and it's not a question directed at you, but it's a question that if maybe you are able to speak to it, you may be able to shed a light or a spark. There is a young woman for that time who was lost through mob persecution in Orlando East. Amongst her credentials is incarceration. Was once the beauty queen of Soweto. I think it was building on or riding on I'm Black, I'm Beautiful. So how I come to the awareness is hearing, 76 was not, it's nothing like what we go through in the 80s. It's nothing like what we're going through now in terms of protest. There was an energy in the air. People were talking, I happen to be fortunate that, my grandmother's home, which is where I grew, was part of the community that were supporting a household of what we were forbidden to refer to them in that name as orphans, right? But they were old enough to have been involved in assisting uprising. So they would banter about the name Masabatalwate. But, generational gaps, there are times when you can ask questions, if you know that. There are times where you just have to listen. So I was going through the phase of just listening. And fast forward, I come across a history archive, which I suspect has been removed. It was online. It was accessible through the Wits School of Archives. And in this archive, they relate the story behind the brutal murder of Masabata Luate. by a group of youth who, upon her release from prison, they actually call her to a meeting and ask her a question, are you joining us? And she says, I can't support a struggle where Black people, become instigators and the hands that kill, fellow Black people. And then they release her in the first meeting, from the first meeting. Then they revisit her, but unbeknown to Masabata and all of us, myself particularly, is that there had already been a split amongst that cohort of youth. There were those whom, the seed had been planted that, I can't be part of this. But there were those who adamantly go to her home, pull her out of her home, in the presence of her brother and the family, and brutally kill her, in the street. And to make peace between the two warring groups so that those who committed this dastardly deed do not go against their former group members, there is a peacemaking effort which gives birth to the Nelson Mandela Football Club. So if there is anything that you may be aware of, Masabata Lwate, she's been completely erased, and yet for some of us, she's still very much alive. She's the first person, to be killed. And thereafter, we see heinous killings of Black people, the second of which is the girl that is necklaced, because that's the word that was used in Dudu's. Thank you.
What I've done, I've collected all the names, but we're still wondering what is it that we're going to do. Because like you say, this is the beginning. Most of us have gone through that. I've also gone through that. I had to leave Soweto, go and stay in the West Rand when my life was threatened after they killed Ntatilingan. I had to send my kids to Lesotho. My kids grew up in Lesotho because I said, this is my struggle. And that's how I moved to the West Rand. So we've gone through that. When people talk about UDF versus Black consciousness, I've been part of that, where the training of using a gun that time had to, I had to go around carrying a gun, even in my car. I had this belief, which we used to talk Libo Jeff, because we were also divided. Some of our people wanted to make peace, but now we're saying we're not going to live like dogs. We're going to live like men and die like men. We're going to die fighting. When somebody threatens us, we go before he attacks us. So that's that is besides having lived the way I lived, running away from the system. Because these things give you experience and you become strong. And that is why even, when we're detained, because of the teachings that we had with Black consciousness, and you become strong, you say, I'm ready to die for the struggle. And now after that, it was ready to die instead of joining these people. And instead of living like a dog, running away from them. So it has been twofold. And that is what made me up to today. That you have to be strong, to face the enemy. And it doesn't matter what kind of an enemy. So I know about Masabate, and I've got what I call a green book. Every time I hear things, I write stories. So I have, and I've spoken to a few people. There's only one person that now I'm hoping will lead me to the family. But they say they are also tired because people come and make promises. When I was making a documentary, we're finding that people are saying, we are tired. We are tired of people coming to ask us questions. So people have gone through that. And then that's why they are reluctant, because they say, what are you doing with the information? Yeah, because people don't write, foreigners come, it's like we're in the zoo with cameras and you don't know where they publish. Mali, for instance, was complaining, people came and then the next thing there was a book written in French, which she didn't know they were talking about, and somewhere they were not even telling the truth. And that is why now we're commenting this thing of being called anti-apartheid activists. We are not anti-apartheid. We're leading a different kind of struggle. And I don't like to be called an anti-apartheid activist. That is a UDF thing.
Siyabonga kakhulu. So I'm gonna go to Unkonzo Mkhize because he has a comment. But before I say that, I think it would be criminal of me not to say this. Mayor Daphne, I know you said that you're not a hero, but to us, you are very much of a hero. And then I have a bit. Oh, should it? To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Daphne. Happy birthday to you. We can stand up, everyone. Thank you.
I was just saying, I'm 76 years. I think of all the times when I've had birthdays, this will always be a milestone in my life, that I spend my birthday with such wonderful people. You have refreshed me. You have reminded me when I was a 23-year-old being active in SASO and Black community programs and whatever. Oh, so this will always be special in my life. Happy 76th birthday.
Thank you very much, Mayor. As I was saying, to us, you are a powerful stalwart, and we appreciate you a lot. And I hope this process is going to be a seed that sprouts and blossoms into many songs that celebrate you, Mayor Mahauta, and everyone. So thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to Unkonzo Mkhize.
Thank you everyone, and happy birthday, Mayor. Yes, you are here to us. So I have a couple of comments and as well as a question or two. I have a question from Peggy Zwane, who asks, why are we Black South Africans not going after the police, after the people, in brackets, police, who tortured our grannies, mothers, and sisters, just like the Jews are chasing after the Nazi? And there's also another question. Just a moment. From Genale Mang, who spoke earlier. She said, "This is so healing for me. I would like to please know who to speak to for further engagement in writing documentaries. My late mother is also one of the unsung heroines of the struggle. I also have my own traumatic lived experiences during her time of police imprisonment." So those are the two questions. Maybe we can address those and then I can go to the comments thereafter.
Okay, I'll attempt to answer the one why we're not going after the police, because I think that's a national question. Yeah, it's the kind of agreement that was signed at Codesa that is making us not run after. And even now, when they had their own truth and commission, which still recommended, that is still not done. And the perpetrators are busy dying. So, so we won't be able to do that. It's a national question. Every country is doing it. We are not doing it because there were deals. You have seen this past 2 months, documents are coming out of other deals that were made that even some members of the ANC didn't know about. So we were sold. So people who sell cannot take decisions because part of the deal is that you don't deal with us. So that is why. And then the second one about the lady, I can give out my number. I'm prepared to talk. But I'm also dealing with trauma, what we did when we're shooting. Each and every participant, we also involved the kids. So they are part of the documentary, and some community members who knew about that person. For instance, with Bongile would go, because she was charged with Thabo Ndabeni, so we got Thabo Ndabeni to comment. Yeah, so that's what we saw. It was not only so that people, the children must know, because we tell our kids now, if it's in the documentary, for them to release the feeling to say, my mother, I'm proud of what my mother did, and I'm angry that they did this to her. It's also part of healing.
No, just one, and I think a lot of them, those security guys, police, I think a lot of them applied for amnesty and they got, that's probably one of the reasons as well.
But you know what, Mzwandile, some of them, for instance, Umachauta told me that one day, I don't know whether you're in a, like a Pick and Pay, and Machauta recognized a white policeman who who was interrogating her. And what did you told me that? Yeah, can you just tell me?
Yeah, no. I saw this man. He was one of the people at John Foster, and very known. He was this tall guys. When they interrogated, just put his yeah. So I'm at Pick and Pay. I look at this guy. The first time, second time I phoned one comrade. I said, I saw this. Kind of, who was that guy? Then he gave me the surname. He said, you must confront him. So when I got to Pick and Pay, I say, hey, I said, morning. He said, morning. I said, are you so-and-so? And then he quickly walked away. And I followed him. I said, you tortured me when I got John Foster Square. He got into a car, he went. Then after a few days again, then he saw me. When he was about to enter John Foster, he went back. Because I was saying, I'm not going to allow him to have peace. So we do meet these guys. Like there was one, Jimmy Cox, he was English. They didn't trust him because he was English. He was a short guy. One time I was coming from Devon, running a workshop from Tapo. So when I got off, I say, hey, Jimmy Cox. And he literally ran, He literally ran. When I recognize them, I must remind them. Yeah, I must remind them that they did that. And we're also looking for some of the torturers. For instance, we looked for Haystack, the one who was torturing Unjini. So we phone until I got that he's working for his brother, who's an insurance person. So the secretary said, no, he'll come in that afternoon. That afternoon, when she put me through, he said, no, he's not Haystack. So because we're saying if we get him, we must interrogate him also for the documentary.
Thank you. We have a thank you, Mme, for your contributions and for your answers to these questions. I have a couple of comments. The first comment comes from our Dr. Betty Govenden, who says absolutely commendable. Begum Zwanile also made a comment. He said, excellent work, Mama. There is something called crowdfunding, and if you have presence in the social media space, it will definitely come handy if you need financing for your future projects. We must hold the white monopoly capital accountable for financially supporting our mothers. Because we know how they fuel the apartheid regime, especially the financial sector, banks, insurance company. Thank you, Bogoto, for your sacrifice. And there's also another comment from Lynette Stephen Feld. The documentary sounds amazing, but what is more inspirational is the spirit and courage and politics that moved women in their participation in the struggle then and continues now. This is the next generation of women this country so desperately needs as part of its national leadership. Thank you. Please let us know how we can get hold of the video should it be shown on national TV. Genalameng, again, this is remarkable. Today is also my birthday. Wow, this is remarkable in my history. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gonzo. I think all of the comments are very powerful, and then also the questions, but I'm very interested in the first one because I don't think it's mainly about vengeance or revenge, but it goes deeper. Like, for instance, when you're meeting those people, we go back to the traumatic experience and so forth. So this is very powerful. And then I'd like to, since people online have commented, I saw my brother that was itching, especially about the first question. So just maybe 2 comments or contributions from the floor, and then we can move forward. Yeah. And then we can close. We can
The mic comes to you, first of all, man, I think for me, it's one of those few times where I don't want to intellectualize. I don't want to speak deep intellectual things, you know. I just want to say, I think like everyone is saying, that one, I don't know if you thank struggling combatants for struggling, but I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for at a time where it was not fashionable like it is today. You know, today it is very fashionable to claim that you are leading a protest. Anyway, you can just wake up somewhere and lead a protest for anything, or claim to be struggling against anything. But at a time where it was not fashionable, where it meant literally life or death for you to struggle, for you to protest and choose to resist and be against a standing army, a standing state that, of course, has been declared a crime against humanity. But also further than that is to say, part of the things that are a problem is that, you know, people are speaking about what we call justice, true justice. True justice means you don't just come and say we are sorry, right? Sometimes you must restore what was destroyed. If you cannot, you compensate for what was destroyed. Because, for example, you could have been employed, so you could have studied and be employed somewhere, and the apartheid regime destroyed almost 40, 50 years of your life, of productivity, of creating a livelihood of yourself because of its torture. So if we have a state that, like the one we have, would refuses to recognize that in fact, at the end of so-called apartheid, as they claim that it has ended, and of course we believe otherwise, there should have been a compensation of some sort, and what we would call repatriations or something like that. Reparations. You know, I'm wearing a Justice for Phoenix Massacre victims t-shirt, because continuously our bodies attract violence, even in this so-called post-democratic order. You know, at some time I was at John Foster. We were with Comrade Seth Mazibu. He took us on a tour, and we saw the writings on the wall. You know, and that's why when we started speaking about John Foster, I think I remembered that, because he told us, you know, because sometimes we meet male comrades, as you say, who refuse to remember that they were females, right? Who refuse to remember that they were other people. But Uset told us that, you know, this was the female section, this is what was happening. And he told us his story of how the apartheid police, in a break and tied it in his scrotum. He was 13, 14 at the time, right? So that's why I'm saying I don't want to go into these other things. I am sure there are people who are more capable. For me, it is the human element of struggle that in our intellectualizing, in our ideological groundings and whatnot, we forget that it actually was human. These are not just theories, right? And lastly, Your generation, Mama Daphne, Mema Khauta, maybe what Dr. Flolani was saying yesterday became a perfect example of what a Black intellectual is. Right? Because you were not just university students who were clever somewhere, but in your grounding, you did what maybe Comrade Zandi does. You went back to the community and you did the theories, the nice things that you were thinking about, you found ways to make them practical in the community. So we are very much inspired, you know? And my thing is to say thank you. And we hope for those of us who have decided to take the baton, we achieve justice for you, for our people, and for our communities one day. And or at least we die trying to achieve that justice. This is well it.
Hi. I just want to follow up on some of the sentiments that have been expressed, and I want to bring us back to the session that we are having that started yesterday and it's going on today. And it's a reminder, and Nelson speaks about it in his 10 theses, about the brutality of colonialism and how it is designed to break the soul and break the mind. And if you look at these actions of the police, and if you look at the questions that are being asked about how do we challenge this about the Jews and that, and I think for me that is where the combative element comes in terms of decoloniality, is for us to record this history, which part and parcel of the 94 settlement. And I'm a historian. And one of the principles that historians work on, that history is a set of lies that are agreed upon. And that is what happened in 94. And that is why 1976 is Youth Day and why Shuffle Day has another day, because it is to rewrite the history and to take away the points of struggle and the reminder of the brutality of the struggle that has to be taken away from the next generation. And that is why we owe the stalwarts. For us, in all of our activities, to record this history and to set the record straight as to what it is apartheid and colonialism was about in South Africa. And this is a reminder to us to say that it's not only about writing for the library, which is important, but it's also for us to be writing to set the record straight. And in whatever, I mean, I'm looking at the questions and I sit back. Today I drew, part of it was a cup of tea. And for me, it was about time for reflecting. I'm 60 years old. I don't have the history of the comrades, but when I sit here and I'm listening to all of this, I'm saying, but you know what? This guy speaking here reminds me of Terra Lakota in 1982. Same build, same speech, and I'm listening to it at the age of 60. My grandchildren, when they're 20, are going to be listening to the same story if we have not recorded and used those experiences as part of the combative experience. Other than that, all of that is a failing. So I'm saying thank you for that record, but I'm saying as we go forward in whatever we plan, in whatever we put forward, that there has to be a record to set the record straight, because there's a deliberate rewriting of history and there's a deliberate rewriting to exclude certain struggles that have been stolen and have been taken over by my organization, which used to be the African National Congress, which is now the African Nationalist Congress, because it's gone, and all of those things. So when I sit here reflecting, and that I think part of that reflection is that we need to write and record. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with us rewriting history, because there is a deliberate effort to erase. I was talking to Zandi yesterday about Intergenerational Center in Muletsani, which is just standing big, and the council, the government is not doing anything to it because it used to be our venue. You look at John Foster Square, when we're going there, the floors that where we're detained are not used. It's just running water, the paint is coming off. That building, we went through it because I struggled for 2 years to get permission to go into it. The politicians were promising me. Eventually, I spoke to the commissioner, and then he granted me permission. So, and why is that? Because most of our people were detained there. So now we are mooting for a John Foster Square movement. We need to really, so that we can turn that place into our own monument, which can record all our people that went there. 80% of the people who went through that building is the Black consciousness people. And that is why they even changed the name to Johannesburg Prison. And there was even a resistance when I was saying John Foster. I say, no, we are calling it John Foster Square. Like constitutionally, we're still calling it number 4. Why should we change the name? So we need, what we need now, the youth who are writing masters and PhD, they need to do research in that, document, and talk about these things. Because we are gone, but we are still there to give them information. So it's us. We should stop complaining about the ANC government and act and start writing and contributing, even to the South African history, because South African history, people can contribute and correct the things. Wikipedia, we can correct the things. Let's fight it. Let's stop complaining and do something about it.
May I? The historian has spoken, so the psychologist follows. Yeah, I was thinking it's a very powerful enactment of politicizing trauma and social suffering, which might be obvious to everyone in the room, but it's not that obvious outside of this room often. And also to gender social suffering and trauma. So thank you for that. And I thought that sharing the documentary and the dialogue and the conversation that followed, including the celebration of your birthday, was, I think, quite a moving and a profound enactment of Black radical healing praxis in this room, which again, coming from where I do, healing is thought about in a very, very different way. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, Ngosakol. Mema Khawata, I think that even before we can say we can use these jail cells as what? As I don't know, as ways, I don't know, tools where we can go back and be able to tell the stories. My thinking and the people that I work with tells me that we can't go back there having not cleansed those spaces. People were killed there. People were raped there. All sorts of things happened there. And it is the Black children who keep on going back to Langatu prison. And this is the reason why back in the day, people would go to prison and they come back even before they get home. They would be cleansed outside. And then so that they never go back there. So so I think that's a common practice amongst Africans, that like when you go there, you come back home and then you landuka you. In fact, even jail cells are not our ways of doing. They colonial ways of landuka of incarcerating people. Africa has never done that. We've never had cells. I stand corrected. So I think the perhaps going forward, we need to link intercoloniality with spirituality and try to find a way, forge a way forward, because like also when we moving, we can't be moving alone. the liberation project is a project of our ancestors. Whatever that we do, we need to walk with them, and the higher power, that is God, Allah, whatever God is to you. We need to think about that. But there's something that I wanted to say, which yeah, I think we because spirituality is the source of power yet. It is the source of our existence. So, and therefore, anything that we do cannot be do outside of spirituality. And I'm saying this knowing that we have understanding the diversity of the land of the country, and the traditional and the cultural differences that we have. But if there's one thing that unifies that, it is spirituality. Because even if no starting a sick or nestete, those are social constructions before isiko nestete, kwakukumoya and umoya usasekhona usalawula. So kubalekile into basebenzisa. But we need to sit down and then decide about going forward. How do we then incorporate spirituality into this landuka, into this movement, if we call it a movement, and then as we move forward, siqiniseke into yoba yonke into esiyenzayo siyenza ngokomoya, sikhokhelwa ngumoya, ngoba sizawuzenzela izinto ngokokucinga kwethu. As I always say, our problem is that we are confined into politics of identity, and sometimes they divide us. Hence, we've seen the Pan-Africanism, Black consciousness, and whatever that ANC's ideological landuka, political ideology, I don't know what it is, whatever that it is. So there are those differences, and it's okay to have those differences. But the question should be, what then should unify us? There's nothing else except spirituality. So if you can have spirituality as the major framework, okay.
Thank you very much. Because of time, we have to end this, but I just want to say this as we end. From an historian to psychologist to a media and film person, I was actually speaking with Ulutan, this is Lutan, and then I was like, God, because I was so jealous of the story. So I'm just surprised if there are people who got the opportunity to film this and to be part of the story, and then they did not. So if there's any opportunity for us. So, okay. And then, but thank you very much. Siyabonga cool. And then I hope this process ngampela is okula to something, because siyabonga cool. Thank you.
Siyabonga, we'll go for tea and coffee. I think we need a break a bit, right? And we're going over time, so come back. It's like 5 minutes tea break.
KwaZulu-Natal is the subtropical pearl of South Africa, with boundless landscapes stretching from Southern Africa's highest peaks to the golden sands of the Indian Ocean. Lying within this beautiful scenery is a university that strives to inspire greatness. The University of KwaZulu-Natal is the largest contact university in sub-Saharan Africa and the premier university of African scholarship. We are ranked as one of the top 3 research-led universities in South Africa and amongst the top 3% of universities worldwide. UKZN has over 49,000 students across all disciplines and is home to some 3,000 international students from 82 countries. The university encourages and embraces diversity in all facets of the student experience and has pioneered the introduction of isiZulu as a module in all undergraduate degree programs. UKZN boasts 5 campuses based in 2 cities, Durban and Pietermaritzburg. There are 4 colleges spread over these 5 campuses: the College of Agriculture, Engineering and Science, the College of Health Sciences, the College of Humanities, and the College of Law and Management Studies. The College of Agriculture, Engineering and Science is at the forefront of innovation and technology. Sophisticated software that examines radiation in outer space, an innovative and affordable 3D printed prosthetic hand, and the development of drought and disease-resistant staple crops enabling food security in Africa are just 3 of the many groundbreaking developments from this college. The College of Health Sciences is a multi-professional institution spread across 3 of our 5 campuses. A gel that reduces the incidence of HIV and a skin patch that administers insulin without needles are just 2 of the many world firsts that have come from this college. The College of Humanities actively contributes to the intellectual development of the region through annual international and popular festivals such as Time of the Writer, Durban International Film Festival, Jomba Contemporary Dance Experience, and Poetry Africa. The College of Law and Management Studies produces specialized and accredited professionals in the field of law, accounting, marketing, financial management, human resources, public administration, and IT. Our world-class amenities include lecture halls, science labs, art and music studios, theaters, indoor and outdoor sports arenas, and dedicated training facilities. These facilities support sports across the full spectrum, accommodating both the beginner and the professional. Our student accommodation, whether in on or off-campus residences, offers students a welcoming home from home and a place to make lifelong friendships. At UKZN, we strongly believe that higher education should be accessible to all. Many students make financial sacrifices to come to university, and we offer several avenues to support our student population in this respect. Generous scholarships are available for top academic and sports achievers, whilst the university works closely with the National NSFAS Bursary and Loan Scheme and with other external donors and funders to assist students in need. To study at UKZN, students need to apply online through the Central Applications Office. It is important to gain the best grade 11 and grade 12 marks possible, as all UKZN degrees have minimum entrance and matric subject requirements, and competition for places is fierce. Visit our website to access more information on our various degree programs. Whatever you are interested in, you can be sure that we offer something for everyone. Some of our famous alumni include South Africa's Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng, founder of Gift of the Givers, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, UN AIDS Special Ambassador, Professor Karesha Abdul Karim, South African cricket stars Jonty Rhodes and Sean Pollock, TV star and actress Jessica Ngosi, and South African musician Zakes Bantwi. Whether it's in the field of academics, sports, or arts and culture, UKZN is home to those who are looking for more than just a university, but a place that celebrates the student experience. Come study with us in the knowledge that you will emerge with a fully accredited and highly respected degree, your stepping stone to lifelong success.
Hi everyone, we're back. But I wanna just start the session with a quote from Open Okri, a Nigerian storyteller. And this is what he says about stories. Stories are the secret reservoir. Reservoir of values. Change the stories individuals and nations live by and tell themselves, and you change the individuals and the nations. Right? Stories are the secret reservoir of values. Change the stories individuals and nations live by and tell themselves, and then you change the individuals and nations. So in this session, we're gonna have a round table. Neyibona i-round, isikokela, isanga, round table, it's literal. Discussion with women from the Black consciousness movement. It's an intergenerational conversation. That's the theme. Intergenerational dialogue. Let's not use the word conversation, dialogue. And that's the running theme, right? For today. It's visible spiritually. It's just, yeah, that's where we're at. And I'm gonna start to introduce Mama. Uzandi will be facilitating this. There's no need for me to read that bio. But we're gonna read ama bios Mama because it's essential, right? Record a history as we sit here and stand. So I'm gonna start to introduce Mom. Yes, no, don't worry, I've got your name. I've got your name. I'm just scrolling down. Kokila Perumal Cooper, right? Kokila Perumal Cooper's political awareness and activism started at the age of 15 through protest theater. She joined the Theatre Council of Natal at the age of 14 and became consciously awakened through the type of radical productions she participated in. She was arrested for performing one such production, Black Images, in Lamontville. She's also a member of the 70s group, right? By 1972, Cooper's political awareness became more entrenched as she became part of the Black consciousness movement. Through her activism, she became a member of Black People's Convention, BPC, by 1973. In 1974, she attended the Frelimo rally, which with her fiance, Riva Bal Cooper, an activist and one of many arrested by the security. After the rally, Cooper was picked up by the security branch and interrogated at the Fisher Street headquarters. During this time, her matric examinations were interrupted. She was also part of the support structure of the political detainees who had been arrested and awaiting trial. This was in the form of preparing meals for the SASO BPC detainees, as well as hosting and assisting their visiting families. She has been a member of the Truth movement in more recent years. Umam Daphne, which I didn't introduce in the last session, and I need to now, right? I'm just scrolling up. Mom Daphne Khoza was born Kwa Guqa, Witbank, Mpumalanga. She grew up in Sharpeville, Vereeniging. She completed primary education in Sharpeville, secondary in Lesotho, high school in Swaziland. She is a graduate from the University of Zululand and the University of Witwatersrand. Umam Daphne was an active member of SASO, Black People's Convention, and the Black community programs, involved in the compilation and publication of the BCP book, Black Review. Her employment history includes being part of the BC Black community programs, South African Council of Churches, St. Barnabas College, SA Institute of Race Relations, Anglo-American Corporations, Standard Bank of South Africa, and retired at the South African Broadcasting Corporations. She became a member of the 70s Group Forum, contributed to an article titled In the Time to Remember, Reflections of Women from the Black Consciousness Movement, a compilation by Sam Moodley. She has featured in Mama Khawata Molefe's documentary, Surviving John Foster Square. She has had an ancestral calling to be trained as Isangoma. She's currently writing a book about her late sister, Winnie Busisiwe Mahlangu, the first Black woman permanently employed as an announcer of Radio Bantu. So Ayabulele, you met yesterday, she spoke. Sisi, Umbali, and then Umbali, yes, Umbali, sorry. You see, being in and out half of the time and organizing. Umbali is here. So I'll just hand over to Sisand.
Thank you so much. Why am I not hearing a round of applause for our female panelists? Thank you so much, Ongezwa. It really has been a good session. For the camera, where should I be? Because I want to also move around. Am I okay here? Should I be stationed? Okay. So welcome to this session where we try and do the work that has not been done, tell the stories that have been forgotten, remember memories that have been erased, and especially if those memories come from female bodies, our mothers, or Sisibetu or Dadewetu. So it's a very important session, and I'm quite honored to be facilitating it. Before we start, can we just give a round of applause for this offering by Umama Sam Moodley? I'll tell you why before, so that you add more power to those hands that you're clapping. We have been challenged to document and write our stories, but of course, those who are in the business of writing and thinking know that it's not as easy, especially when one must now write, about their trauma, torture, and that whole project of remembering and trying to embody what has been disembodied. It's not a child's play. So can we please give her a warm round of applause in absence, Sam Moodley, for this amazing offering. She was, of course, part of one of the summer schools, right, Com Research, and we're so honored to be graced by her presence. For this particular session, my sisters, Mama, mothership, you know, there's leadership and then there's mothership. This is it. I would like us to very much continue with some of the conversations that were inspired by the documentary in the first session. So if you were part of, especially those who are joining us online, just think of it as a continuation. And if there were questions that you wanted to share or reflect from the previous session, you are welcome to do so. But particularly, I think for me, one of the things that, you know, resonated with not just the documentary and the process that went into archiving memory and trying to piece together, you know, the memory that is sitting locked in archives and the memory that is sitting and locked in the body as a living archive. One of the things that, you know, stood together for me is the question of healing. You know, how do we heal this erased memory and this disembodied body? So for me, I would like us to, you know, center that into the conversation as we go through an intergenerational dialogue that not only, you know, serves to connect the younger generation of activists with the most senior generation of activists who are also women, but also to, I think, share experiences. Because if you accept the thesis that nothing has changed since the dawn of 1994, then we should not really be surprised if, for example, the Fees Must Fall students are exposed to the same levels of torture that, you know, their mothers were exposed to, especially psychologically, because I mean, the person who came up with the apartheid system was a PhD graduate, and I believe he's still, you know, getting his pension. In fact, not his pension, he's getting a full salary in one of the universities. So it was a well thought out psychological project, and therefore, even torture itself is a well thought out psychological project set out to achieve specific things. So it's a science. So it's not surprising that with the continuities of pre-1994 and post-1994, some of the things have remained the same, including how the state responds to political activism, be it in 1976, 1968, 1960, and going forward, or with the Fees Must Fall, or in the post-1994 moment. So I'd like to bring, you know, some of the students who were in the Fees Must Fall to also open up and about their stories and their experience of being in the heat of a moment that could have birthed something different, but did not, okay? And what then happens to you as the mind and the psyche that went through that moment, you know? So I will invite everyone to share their stories, but I'd also like to draw from this book, allow our senior comrades, Omama Betu, to draw from this book and just to keep sharing their stories as part of therapy. You know, talking is, you know, healing. Writing is healing. I think I will start with Me Mahauta, and then I will go this way. If you also take a closer look in terms of how the round table is organized, we have, you know, intercepted the youth in between the elders to sort of give continuation and expression to that intergenerational dialogue. And I think for this particular table, the common thread that holds and weaves us all together is Black liberation, you know, expressed in Black consciousness and our inexhaustible hunger to call our souls our own. So can you please give them a round of applause before we start? Me Mahauta, where's my sister Ongeza? It's Mahauta, eh? Because when I'm not in Durban, my Tswana tongue fumbles. Now she can't pronounce her name because her Zulu tongue fumbles. It's Mahauta, you know, mother of gold. Me Mahauta, your work in this journey of remembering and trying to rejoin what was, disjointed, focuses on the theme of detention. And you quite correctly, outline how when we think about, detention in terms of also how the discourse around detention is formulated, it is male-centric, right? We are almost even afraid to go to the darker side where women are detained. Firstly, because we know the apartheid regime was a white supremacist patriarchal system of oppression. And therefore it is male-dominated, male-led. It is easy for us to assume that Black women were not necessarily really tortured, but at the same time, it becomes important for that very reason that it is led by men. You describe them as very huge and imposing, the men that tortured you. So it also becomes, for me, a very important dialogue in terms of what people went through, what Black women went through into those torture chambers. I'd like us to take us through your story, and particularly why you want to anchor your journey of remembering in detention. The mic is on your right.
Thank you. What okay, at the moment I'm writing a story that's called Section 6. It's a very big story because it doesn't get finished. I'm writing about my detention. Section 6 was the act of, under the Terrorism Act, where you were kept in isolation. But as I'm writing it, a lot of things come, my experiences at the university, the experiences of my father when he was taken by the security police in the 60s and tortured and he was house arrested. So I'm not finishing the book, and I started it even before the documentary. So maybe one day I'll get somebody who wants to autobiography me and finish the story. So what I did, I said for the session, I will not use the story in the book because the story in the book talks about my passport. And it's an unfinished story because I never gone into what happened when I eventually got the passport. There's another story linked to that. So I'm going to read out, it's an excerpt from my book about my experience when they were interrogating me. So it's one of the chapters from my book. Can I do this? Okay. I had been standing there because it was said I was refusing to cooperate. Cooperating meant writing down what they told you, agreeing to have done things incriminating myself and others. Standing was one of the notorious punishments the system meted during interrogation. While standing there would be one thing done to you, you would be clapped, kicked, pushed, sawn at and threatened, electric shocks and even suffocated in an ice bag. People's resilience differed, some giving up at various stages, others never. In fact, most of the women did not give in. They were strong. It's a factor that has now come to light that is not spoken about. It has been days and they changed shifts on me. The first 6 days, I stood for 18 hours, not sleeping. And they were doing 6-hour shift. There were 3 teams. Then it was extended to 24 hours. When it was 24 hours, it meant I never slept. I wasn't allowed to go back to my cell. And each team was doing 8-hour shift on me. That evening, some of them were just fed up with the whole process of guarding me. It was a few hours after the shift has changed. Indicated that I don't understand, which was their main language. They tried all means to try me on it. In the end, I understood most of their. In fact, my understanding of Africa at that period. I off while at school, my mom as my standard progressed. I had to know what they said about me, about other detainees, and the developments in their operation against our struggle. That day, there were 3 of them on duty, 2 men and 1 woman, Yolandi Buota. Yolandi worked more daily shifts, probably because she was the only woman. She didn't do night shift. They had brought in 1 woman. She complained about the type of promotion where you just looked after a person standing. After 2 days, she stopped coming to work. I heard that when they called her, she told them she has submitted her resignation. They were talking amongst themselves that resignations were not accepted at that stage because the country was in trouble with terrorism. Some of them were not convinced. Part of Yolandi's duties was to escort me to the toilet. When she was off, a male would do it, and this terrified me a lot because I didn't know what to expect. One of them started shouting at me that I was refusing to cooperate. He was threatening and swearing. I just stood there, defiant as always. He then asked Yolande to clap me. Clap her, clap her. Yolande got up off her chair and with confidence stood away from me. They encouraged her in me. I don't know, something like being in a trance. The place became dark. Yolande became thinner and darker. She just became a shadow. I felt like a tiger, powerful, long nails like a snake about to pounce. A lot of things traveled in my body. I saw and felt my sweaty hands around her neck. I pounced on her, strangled her. They hit me, kicked me, but I held on to her and smelled her cheap perfume. Her stinking body as she lost her grip and her body slowly becoming lifeless between my strong thighs. I found myself staring at her right in her eyes. My body was sweating. My tight-fisted arms wet. My upper body muscles tightened. I felt strong, powerful, and murderous. Yolande just stood there, her body uneasy, her confidence gone. She looked frightened, weak, and ready to run. And when they were pushing her towards me, she remained pinned to her position. They mocked her for not hitting me. They laughed at her. She went back, almost missing her chair when she tried to sit, this time not crossing her legs like she always did. With her arms holding off her chair, a sigh, which also released my air from my system as I started breathing again and came back to life. Getting back to myself from where I was standing. I was proud of myself. I thought she was superior and had power over me. I felt victorious, and that brought a lot of courage to me. I knew that even though my guards didn't acknowledge, I won a round over them. I proved the allegation they were always making against me, that I am a trained terrorist who could just kill a person by putting a finger on the neck. One of their demands was to write or demonstrate how I was trained to kill white people. There was a lot of tension after that demonstration. Also warnings that there might be more space between themselves and me. When I eventually asked to go to the toilet, Yolande reluctantly escorted me. She was careful and she kept her distance. Eventually, in one of the toilet trips, she asked me what would have happened if she had left me. I said, and she said to me, I saw it. I saw it. She was scared. Of course. So,
If you can just unpack before Wadi gets on your story.
Yesterday we were talking about combative decoloniality. Yeah. And then I realized how training can give you power. Because what happened is that we got into the struggle, we were prepared to fight, we were prepared to die. It was a war situation. And now, even now, when you're in captive, you are saying, I don't care what happens to me, because you're dying for the truth. And this is what happened. This is just part of it, where I'm just a small girl and this CEO will torture us. But I don't care. Because towards the end of this chapter, I'm saying, perhaps if I had hit Yolanda, they would have killed me. So I would not be able to write this book. But at that time, I didn't care. And you tell yourself, this is war. And the experience that we had, where you end up not knowing where you are staying, where you would sleep, because we are running away from the police. So we go all over the country and then eventually we are captured. But then as years go, because we're young, we are taking risks, we don't care. But I remember now in the 80s when the police were looking for me, and now I had kids. I was so scared, and I was scared of being detained because I was sure I would be as strong as I was in the 70s. So, you know, the different things. So this is just part of it, and I'll throw back to the house to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mama. You can pass the mic to Sisibandi Khamen. And just to, I mean, as a young activist, just to reflect on what Mama just shared, and maybe to also bring your insights in terms of how hearing these stories, you know, impacts on you.
Sanibonani. I think for me, what really stands out, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm very, very grateful to be sitting on this table with definitely Mom Koza, and Mama Koza. Yes, Mama Koza, Mama Definitely, and Mayor Kuti. I think it's such a really honoring experience, because just hearing Mama read her story and what she went through and the fact that she survived and she's sitting on this very table with us, resharing her story and capturing her story is really, you know, such an honor for myself as a young person who is interested in stories of women who walked before us, so that, you know, we learn and take forth the tool. I would like to also reverse what Mama said earlier about how even during the documentary they brought in children of the women that they were, you know, type of pain and the joys that they experience, we also get to experience them much later, because how they parent us, how they hold us, and how they teach us is influenced by their past experiences and how they were socialized themselves. So the healing there becomes, if our parents heal, we heal too. And what Umama is sharing in terms of capturing her story right now is another process and act of healing, though it's a bit tormenting because she's reliving the moment, reliving that moment at Section 6 and being with this white police who's guiding her or orderer, and that moment of power for her is very inspiring for me, because it reminds me that as young people, we always are amped with so much power to do something and to be more. So, and when she says that she was so courageous then, and for her it was a moment of, I need to fight this, whether I die or live after this, I really don't care, because I believe in this idea, I believe in being myself, I believe in validating or coming out to remind these people that I'm human and I'm not an animal as they treated me. And much later, as a mother, then she's a bit reluctant to react or to think, when she reflects and thinks about that moment, then it's like, I can't be that person anymore. So that for me is a screaming reminder that as young people, we have the power to act for what we believe in. And young people have always been in the forefront to bring about change. And I'm so grateful to be sitting there with a then young person and now mother to us to say, to remind us that young people, we need to, in our journey of what we believe in, we need to apply and live for what we believe in and be prepared to sacrifice all. So thank you, Mama Makauta.
And Gosimai for that. Before I invite Aya Bulila to also just, reflect on the story, there's in fact, in terms of how you described that moment, you said, it was almost metaphysical, there was a dark moment, the light. I want us to go into that, but also putting some of the insights from our brother with the spiritual element. It seems to me as though something came over you and put you, above what you were facing, and you're able to describe that. Okay, you can come, and then Aya, you just come after she responds to that.
Yes, it happens. Like when you are standing there, they don't even allow you to close your eyes. When you close your eyes, they beat you. So one had to devise a means of being invisible, I can say, because I would look them in the eye and yet I'm sleeping. And I'm dreaming. I'm looking like this, and I'm dreaming. So and that thing, even after my release, I'll sleep with my eyes open. And they used to accuse each other because they were surprised I'm not closing. I would tell myself, now I'm sleeping. And I'm looking at them and I dream, and sometimes I'm imagining. And at a time when now you are confused, you see things, you hear people talking. Like there was a time when they put me on a chair and I was starting to hallucinate. And then I see women passing me, say, come, let's go. And then I walk, I'm on a chair and I'm walking and then I fall, So you have to have a mental power to deal with a situation. And they were now asking each other, this person is not sleeping. Why? Then they are think the previous shift, maybe they allowed me to sleep. Because, we're running away from books. We're reading a lot of books about the torture of the